Tonight, we explore the eerie stories of ships that vanished without a trace, and others that returned with no living soul aboard. Ghostly vessels adrift in open waters, cargo untouched, food still warm, yet not a single crew member in sight. From the legendary Mary Celeste to the modern-day High Aim No.1, these ships defy logic and continue to puzzle scientists, sailors, and skeptics alike. So before you get comfortable, as always, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, only if you enjoy our content. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Sometimes our stories are too interesting, and we are working on some boring ones too. It's time now to dim the lights. Turn on a fan for some noise, and let's cover what we have for tonight. Together. 1. The Mary Celeste, Ghost of the Atlantic. She was built to endure the open ocean. A sturdy 103-foot brigantine, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York on November 7, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy. On board, 7 crew members, Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. The cargo, 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. Just under a month later, on December 5th, the Mary Celeste was spotted drifting aimlessly near the Azores by another ship, the Dei Gratia. Something was off. Her sails were partially set, fluttering in the wind. No distress signals, no signs of chaos, but also no crew in sight. When the Dei Gratia's sailors boarded her, they found eerie silence. No one was there, not a soul. The lifeboat was missing, but inside the cabin, everything was oddly calm, clothes neatly packed, captain's log up to date, food laid out. Even the child's toys were still in place. The only clues, a few feet of water in the hull, normal for ships of the time, some ropes trailing in the ocean, and the alcohol barrels untouched. No signs of mutiny, no struggle, no damage from a storm. The ship wasn't even damaged enough to suggest panic. Whatever happened was quiet, precise, and final. For over 150 years, theories have floated, each more implausible than the last. Pirates? But nothing was stolen. Mutiny? But the crew had no history of unrest. A seaquake? But the area was calm. Some even blame toxic alcohol fumes leaking from the cargo, causing hallucinations and fear. But that doesn't explain the complete disappearance of 10 people, lifeboat and all. Captain Briggs was known as a careful, even devout man. He wrote to his mother just before leaving port, saying, "The voyage should be a safe one." It wasn't. The Mary Celeste has since become the poster child of ghost ships, a floating paradox, sailing across time with no answers aboard. And perhaps that's why it haunts us. Because the ship was found, the cargo was found, the food, the water, the clothing, all found. But the people, their stories, their fear, their final moments, gone. The ocean swallowed 10 lives without leaving a ripple. And in its place, it left behind the most famous maritime mystery of all time. The ghost of the Mary Celeste still drifts through our imagination. 2. The SS Ourang Medan. I Die. The Ourang Medan wasn't supposed to exist. There's no official record of its registry, no complete crew list, and yet its story persists, like a whisper in the dark. According to multiple reports, in 1947, this Dutch freighter was sailing somewhere in the Strait of Malacca when a chilling SOS crackled across the radio waves. It began with panic. All officers, including the captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge, possibly whole crew dead. Moments passed. Then a final message came through. I die. And then silence. A nearby American ship, the Silver Star, responded immediately. When they located the Ourang Medan, it was dead in the water, motionless and ghost-like in the tropical heat. They sent a boarding party. What they found defied reason. The entire crew was dead, not from gunfire or drowning, not from fire or explosion, They were sprawled across the decks, eyes wide open, mouths frozen in terror. Some had their arms raised as if fending off something no one else could see. Even the ship's dog was dead, snarling at something unseen in its final breath. Strangest of all, there were no signs of injury, no blood, no wounds, no poison, just fear, etched permanently onto every face. The crew of the Silver Star barely had time to investigate. As they prepared to tow the vessel, smoke began rising from the cargo hold. Within moments, the Ourang Medan exploded violently, splintering apart and sinking into the depths of the sea, taking its secrets with it. And just like that, it was gone. So what happened? Some theories suggest the ship was carrying hazardous chemicals, like potassium cyanide or nitroglycerin, that released deadly fumes. Others whisper of supernatural forces, or covert military cargo from World War II. But here's the thing. No official documentation of the ship has ever been verified. No port of origin. No surviving crew. Just radio transmissions, eyewitness reports, and fragments of a story that refuses to die. The Ourang Medan challenges more than science. It challenges belief. How can an entire crew die in terror, without a mark, on a ship that never officially existed? The truth may be buried with her, deep beneath the waves, where fear still lingers in the dark. 3. MV Joyita, the silent lifeboats. In October 1955, the MV Joyita set out from Samoa with 25 people on board, 16 passengers and 9 crew members. It was a short trip, just 2 days across calm South Pacific waters, headed for the Tokelau Islands. The Joyita never arrived. For 5 long weeks, no one knew what happened. No distress signal, no wreckage, just silence. Then, on November 10th, a merchant vessel spotted her drifting 600 miles off course, listing to one side, half submerged, and completely abandoned. When investigators boarded the vessel, they found something deeply unsettling. The radio was still tuned to the emergency frequency, but its wiring had been ripped out. The medical bag was open on the deck, stained with blood. 4 tons of cargo were missing, including food, medical supplies, and trade goods. But even stranger, all life jackets were gone. So were the lifeboats. Every person vanished. Yet the Joyita hadn't sunk. Despite her battered state, she was still afloat, thanks to her construction. Built with a cork-lined hull and buoyant materials, she was virtually unsinkable. So why abandon her? Why leave an undamaged, still-floating vessel for the open ocean? Theories flooded in. Some claimed piracy, pointing to the missing cargo. Others suspected a mechanical failure or a slow leak that scared the crew into abandoning ship. There were even whispers of political motives, suggesting someone wanted the passengers silenced. But none of these theories explain the most haunting detail. No bodies were ever found. The sea has a way of erasing answers. But the Joyita seemed to carry her questions deliberately, like scars etched into her frame. There were no signs of struggle, no visible panic, just an eerie calm and absence. The captain, a respected sailor named Thomas Dusty Miller, was known for being cautious, even stoic. His logbook, strangely, was missing too, along with the navigational equipment. It was as if the entire voyage had been erased. Today, the Joyita remains a symbol of maritime mystery, not just because she was found, but because everything else wasn't. 25 souls, gone without a trace, no goodbye, no clue, just a vessel, adrift and broken, whispering to the waves. 4. High Aim No.1, The Floating Secret. On Christmas Day 2002, a small Taiwanese fishing boat named High Aim No.1 quietly slipped out of port, its crew ready for the weeks of deep-sea fishing that lay ahead. The ship was well maintained, fully stocked, and equipped with modern communication tools. Captain Chen Wei Cheng and his Indonesian crew were experienced, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then, weeks later, the ship was found drifting near Australia, empty. On January 15, 2003, Australian authorities spotted the High Aim No.1 quietly bobbing in the water, 80 nautical miles off the coast of Broome. The engine was still running, lights flickered on at night, fuel and provisions were untouched. But there was no one aboard. Not a single person. No signs of a struggle, no water damage, no distress call, no lifeboats missing. Just silence. When investigators boarded the vessel, they found personal belongings still neatly arranged. The crew's clothes, books and gear hadn't been disturbed. There were even mugs left in the galley, as if someone had stepped away mid-conversation. Forensic checks showed no signs of blood, no damage to the hull, and nothing to suggest an emergency. It was as if the crew had simply walked off. Eventually, one Indonesian crew member was located back in his home country. He confessed, briefly, that there had been a mutiny. Some of the crew, he claimed, had killed the captain and chief engineer before abandoning the ship in a lifeboat. Why? He never explained. He later vanished from authorities' reach. No other crew members were ever found. There was no motive, no clear sequence of events, and no definitive evidence to support or contradict his story. The sea, as always, had buried the truth. Modern ships aren't supposed to vanish this way. Not with GPS, radios and satellite tracking. But the High Aim No.1 did, and its ghostly presence drifting through Australian waters was a reminder. Even with all our technology, the ocean can still erase. Some say the mutiny story is a cover. Others believe the ship was used for something illegal, then abandoned. But the real question lingers. Why keep the engine running? Why leave no trace of panic? The High Aim No.1 remains a floating secret, and the ocean isn't talking. 5. Kaz II, the ghost yacht of Australia. On April 15, 2007, the Kaz II set sail from Eerily Beach, Queensland, Australia. A modest 12-metre catamaran, she was manned by 3 men, Derek Batten and brothers Peter and James Tunstead. All were experienced sailors and looking forward to a relaxing trip up the Queensland coast. But 3 days later, the Kaz II was found drifting aimlessly, about 88 nautical miles off the shore. When authorities boarded the vessel, they were met with one of the most chilling and pristine ghost ship scenes in modern history. The yacht was in perfect condition. The engine was still running, GPS was active, radio systems were working, a laptop was open. Food was laid out on the table, as if lunch had just been served. A fishing rod trailed over the back of the boat. And the only thing missing was the crew. There were no signs of foul play, no damage to the vessel, no life jackets missing. The men's personal belongings, wallets and phones were all aboard. Only one piece of evidence stood out. One of the sails was shredded. But that was it. Theories came fast. Some suggested the men fell overboard one by one, perhaps while fishing or trying to free a snagged line. Others imagined a sudden squall catching them off guard. But that theory didn't hold up. The Kaz II was a stable catamaran, and the weather had been calm. Investigators studied video footage taken on the day of departure. The men looked relaxed, chatting and enjoying the breeze. Nothing unusual. No sign that it would be their last day seen alive. Despite aerial searches, sonar sweeps and coordinated rescue efforts, not a single trace of the men was ever found. No bodies, no debris, just a spotless vessel, calmly drifting through crystal blue waters. It's the kind of mystery that gnaws at logic. If it were pirates, why leave everything untouched? If it were an accident, why didn't at least one man survive? And why didn't anyone radio for help? The Kaz II was eventually returned to shore, but the question she carried never docked. 3 men disappeared from a modern yacht, in daylight, in calm weather, under perfect conditions, and their story remains one of Australia's most unnerving maritime enigmas. 6. HMS Resolute, the ship that came back alone. In 1852, the British Admiralty launched one of the largest Arctic expeditions in history. Its mission, to find Sir John Franklin's lost ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. Among the search vessels was a sturdy bark called HMS Resolute. She was built for ice. Reinforced, crewed by skilled sailors, and captained by the determined Henry Kellett, Resolute set out to do what few dared, enter the frozen unknown. But by 1854, her mission had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. Locked in thick Arctic ice, far from rescue, Captain Kellett made the painful decision to abandon ship. The crew gathered their gear and marched across the desolate white expanse, leaving Resolute behind, frozen and silent. They assumed she would sink when the thaw came. They were wrong. 1 year later, and thousands of miles away, off the coast of Baffin Island, an American whaling ship spotted something strange. A fully intact bark, slowly drifting in open water. It was HMS Resolute. She had somehow survived the ice. Alone, unmanned, she had navigated her way through melting floes, tides, and freezing storms. She had travelled over 200 miles without a crew. When she was brought to port, her contents were nearly untouched. Charts, logs, journals, still intact. Her cannons and instruments all accounted for. Even stranger? The American crew reported the ship as eerily well kept, as if something, or someone, had been tending to her. The United States, in a rare gesture of goodwill during tense diplomatic times, restored Resolute and gifted her back to Queen Victoria in 1856. She was hailed as a symbol of resilience, a vessel that refused to die. But the story doesn't end there. Years later, when the Resolute was finally decommissioned, her timbers were used to craft a desk, a gift to the US president. Today, that same Resolute desk still sits in the Oval Office of the White House. So this isn't just the story of a ghost ship. It's the story of a ship that came back, that moved on its own, that carried within it a mystery, and then became part of world history. How did Resolute find her way back across ice and ocean? We may never know, but her ghost never left. 7. Jianseng, the ship with no name. In March 2006, off the remote coast of Queensland, Australia, maritime authorities spotted something strange. A massive tanker, weathered, rusting and silent, drifting just outside the shipping lanes near the Gulf of Carpentaria. There was no distress signal, no registration, no flag, no name, just a ghost ship, empty and adrift. When Australian customs officers boarded it, they were stunned. The vessel was completely abandoned, no crew, no logbook, no identifying documents. She was a maritime ghost, without a past or a purpose. What they did find were large amounts of rice, stacked and slowly rotting, and a broken-down tow rope. It suggested the ship had been under tow at some point, but broke free. Still, the questions piled up. There were no records of the ship's existence. No country claimed ownership. It had no working engines, no clear origin, and no signs of where it had come from, or where it was going. They called her the Jianseng, based on faded lettering barely visible on the hull. But even that name wasn't definitive. Authorities speculated she may have been a resupply vessel for illegal fishing operations, designed to refuel and restock ships operating just beyond the boundaries of enforcement. But if that were true, why abandon her? Why leave behind thousands of dollars worth of cargo? And why did nobody report her missing?
Despite extensive investigations, the trail went cold. No country filed a report, no families came forward, no crew members were ever identified. The Jianseng was towed out to sea and quietly scuttled, buried in the depths without ceremony. But the mystery lingers. Ships don't just appear from nowhere, especially not 80-meter tankers drifting into one of the most closely monitored marine zones in the world. To this day, the Jianseng remains one of Australia's greatest maritime mysteries, a ghost ship in every sense, not because of what was found aboard, but because of what wasn't. No names, no voices, no records, just rusted steel, forgotten rice, and a journey erased by the sea. Some ships vanish. But this one appeared, without a past and without explanation. And that, perhaps, is even more terrifying. 8. Carol A. Deering, the five-masted Phantom. On the morning of January 31, 1921, a U.S. Coast Guard patrol spotted a massive schooner wrecked on the Diamond Shoals of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, an area ominously nicknamed the Graveyard of the Atlantic. The ship was the Carol A. Deering, a sleek, five-masted cargo schooner built for speed and strength. She'd left Rio de Janeiro just weeks earlier, headed back to the United States with a full crew and a clean bill of health. Now she sat eerily grounded. When the Coast Guard boarded her, they found something strange. Everything was still on board. The galley was stocked. The crew's clothing and boots were lined up neatly in their quarters. Navigation tools were gone, so were the lifeboats. But there was no sign of violence, no fire, no storm damage, no panic. The ship's logbook and all personal belongings had vanished. It looked as if the crew had left in an orderly fashion, without a word. But why would a seasoned crew abandon a perfectly functional vessel only miles from shore? Worse still, the last confirmed sighting of the Deering only made the story murkier.
A lightship near Cape Lookout had spoken to a man on board who wasn't the captain, and who seemed evasive. The crew was acting oddly, suspiciously, and then nothing. Several theories quickly surfaced. Some blamed hurricanes or rogue waves, yet the Deering had clearly run aground after being abandoned. Others pointed to piracy, Prohibition-era rum runners, or even Bolshevik saboteurs, wild tales fueled by the post-WWI paranoia gripping the nation. One theory, still whispered about today, connects the Deering to the infamous Bermuda Triangle, even though it grounded slightly north of it. The mystery deepened when several other ships vanished under odd circumstances in the same region during that exact month. Despite multiple investigations by the FBI, the Navy, and Congress, no definitive cause was ever found. The crew of the Deering, like so many others in these stories, simply vanished, gone from a ship that by all accounts should have brought them home. The Carol A. Deering remains a phantom of American maritime history, a towering schooner that returned without its soul. And somewhere in the silence between wind and wave, her unanswered questions still drift. 9. SS Baichimo, the ghost that wouldn't sink. In 1931, the SS Baichimo, a sturdy 230-foot steel cargo ship operated by the Hudson's Bay Company, was sailing through the icy waters off the Alaskan coast. She had weathered nearly a decade of Arctic trading missions, carrying furs and supplies between Canadian outposts and the world beyond. But in October of that year, the ice finally caught up with her. Trapped near Barrow, Alaska, the Baichimo became stuck fast in thick pack ice. Her crew was forced to wait for a break, but the Arctic had other plans. After several days, fearing the ship might be crushed, the crew temporarily evacuated, setting up camp nearby on the frozen tundra. A blizzard struck. When the storm cleared, the Baichimo was gone. Everyone assumed she'd sunk beneath the ice. But just days later, an Inuit hunter reported seeing her, miles away, adrift and battered but afloat. The crew caught up with her and managed to retrieve some cargo, but the captain, fearing she was no longer seaworthy and too dangerous to tow, abandoned her for good. That should have been the end. But the Baichimo wasn't done. Over the next 38 years, the ship was repeatedly spotted, sometimes boarded, always abandoned, drifting silently through the Arctic seas. She became a phantom of the North, appearing without warning and disappearing just as quickly. In 1933, a group of Inuit boarded her to take shelter during a storm. In 1939, she was seen by a passing vessel still upright and eerily intact. Sightings continued into the 1960s, often recorded by fishermen, explorers, and even the Canadian government. But no one could ever hold on to her. The Baichimo slipped through the cracks of time, too stubborn to sink, too elusive to recover. In 1969, she was seen for the last time, stuck in pack ice once again. Then, nothing. Search missions were launched, but she was never found again. Some believe she finally succumbed to the sea. Others think she still floats, waiting, hiding somewhere beyond the ice. The Arctic doesn't give up its ghosts easily, and the Beichimo may be the loneliest of them all, sailing in silence through fog and memory. A ship that simply refused to die. 10. Teignmouth Electron, A Voyage into Silence. In 1968, the Sunday Times Golden Globe race was launched, a solo, non-stop, round-the-world sailing competition. Among the entrants was a man named Donald Crowhurst, an amateur sailor, inventor, and father of 4. His boat, the Teignmouth Electron, was a trimaran, custom-built and not fully tested. Crowhurst had everything riding on this race: financial pressure, public expectation, a sponsorship deal that would ruin him if he failed to complete the journey. So, on October 31st, 1968, he set sail from England. But deep down, he knew he wasn't ready. As days turned into weeks, the Teignmouth Electron fell behind. The boat was plagued by mechanical issues. Crowhurst, ill-prepared for the demands of ocean sailing, faced a terrifying realization. If he continued, he might die. But if he turned back, he'd be financially ruined. So he made a fateful choice. He decided to fake the race. He transmitted false positions, claiming to be making record-breaking progress around the globe, when in reality he lingered in the South Atlantic, waiting for the right time to rejoin the fleet and finish the race without suspicion. But the sea has a way of unravelling lies. As the months wore on, isolation began to chip away at Crowhurst's sanity. His logbooks, once filled with meticulous navigation notes, became filled with strange mathematical equations, philosophical musings, and cryptic ramblings about time, God, and truth. In June 1969, the Teignmouth Electron was found adrift in the Atlantic Ocean by a passing ship. Her sails were up, the cabin was orderly, and Crowhurst was gone. His last log entry was dated June 29th. It was the final descent into madness, pages of disjointed thoughts and existential despair. Most experts believe he took his own life, stepping off the boat into the abyss. He was never seen again. The Teignmouth Electron, abandoned yet eerily preserved, was eventually salvaged and left to rot in the Caribbean. Today, her stripped hull still sits on the shore of Cayman Brac, a rusting monument to ambition, deception, and isolation. Crowhurst's story isn't just about a ghost ship. It's about what happens when a man is alone with the sea, and with himself, and how sometimes the scariest thing out there isn't the ocean. It's the silence. 11. SS Valencia, Shadows on the Cliffs. In the dark winter of 1906, the passenger steamer SS Valencia departed San Francisco en route to Seattle. On board were over 100 people, families, businessmen, crew members, all expecting a routine voyage up the coast of California and Oregon. But the weather turned treacherous. Battered by high winds and thick fog, the Valencia veered off course and slammed into the jagged reefs near Vancouver Island's southwest coast, a region already feared by sailors and known ominously as the graveyard of the Pacific. The impact was catastrophic. With lifeboats smashed and no safe way to shore, chaos broke out. Waves tore at the vessel. People were swept into the frigid sea. Survivors clung to the deck and rigging, desperately hoping for rescue. Some were even stranded on the wreck for 2 full days, visible from the cliffs, watching passing ships that couldn't reach them through the raging surf. Only 37 people survived. Over 90 lives were lost. And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. In the weeks and years that followed, strange sightings began to emerge. Locals and lighthouse keepers reported seeing ghostly figures on the rocks near Pachena Point, where the Valencia had struck. A lifeboat, number 5, believed to have vanished with all hands, was found floating 27 years later, in surprisingly good condition, hundreds of miles from the wreck site. Other reports told of a phantom ship seen near the same cliffs, matching the Valencia's profile, appearing only during violent storms, lit by eerie lights with shadowy figures clinging to the rails. Even seasoned sailors swore they'd seen her, adrift in the mist, eternally reliving her final moments. Despite extensive searches, parts of the wreck were never recovered. The violent waves that shattered the ship also obscured its remains, leaving behind only questions. Was the Valencia just another tragic casualty of the sea, or did something linger? She wasn't a ghost ship in the traditional sense. She didn't drift back, empty and abandoned. But something about her never left. Her passengers died waiting for help that never came. Maybe they still are. Some say their souls walk the cliffs. Others say their screams can still be heard during storms. And every now and then, a ship-shaped shadow cuts through the fog. 12. Zabrina, the silent witness of the deep. In the early hours of a foggy morning in 1917, a coastal lookout near the French shores spotted a lone vessel drifting in the distance. The ship, later identified as the Zabrina, was unlike any other vessel in the harbour. It was a modest, two-masted schooner, its paint faded and weather-beaten, and yet there was something unsettling about the silence that surrounded her. The Zabrina had set sail from a bustling port several days earlier, laden with supplies and a full crew intent on routine trade. But by the time she reached the French coast, the ship was eerily deserted. There was no sign of struggle or chaos, just the quiet emptiness of an abandoned vessel. Local fishermen were the first to notice. They recalled passing by a ship that seemed to glide along the water as if propelled by nothing more than the gentle pull of the tide. Its sails, though partially tattered, were hoisted as if in eager anticipation, yet there was no life aboard to man them. A closer inspection revealed personal effects neatly arranged, half-finished meals left on tables, and navigational instruments still glinting under the pale morning light. Every detail painted a picture of normalcy, until you realized the crew had vanished without a trace. Investigators were baffled. How could a ship, fully equipped and under no apparent duress, be left completely unmanned? Theories began to circulate. Some speculated that the crew, gripped by an inexplicable dread, might have abandoned the ship in a sudden mass exodus. Others whispered of an encounter with a mysterious phenomenon, a moment when time itself seemed to pause, allowing the ship to sail on empty. One intriguing detail emerged. The ship's logbook ended abruptly, as if the crew had been forced to leave in haste. No signs of violence or damage were evident. There was only the lingering sense of foreboding, an unanswered question that seemed to float in the air like the morning mist. The Zabrina was eventually towed back to port, but her story continued to haunt those who encountered her. She wasn't simply a derelict vessel. She was a silent witness to a maritime mystery that defied logical explanation. A mystery that left behind only whispers and shadows on the water. Even now, when the sea is at its calmest, locals say you can almost hear the echo of footsteps on deck. A reminder of a crew that vanished into thin air, leaving the Zabrina to drift alone in the vast, indifferent ocean. 13. SV Bellamica, the yacht with no past. In the summer of 2006, amid the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean, an unusual sight caught the eye of local mariners. A sleek, modern yacht was spotted drifting near a secluded cove off the coast of Italy. Unlike any vessel known to them, the yacht bore no registration markings that could tie it to a nation, no visible ownership, and even stranger, a complete absence of a crew. Dubbed the SV Bellamica by those who first encountered her, this vessel was an enigma, wrapped in polished teak and gleaming stainless steel. The yacht's design was contemporary, built for luxury and leisure, yet its pristine condition was at odds with the desolation surrounding it. When Italian maritime authorities boarded the Bellamica, they found a scene that was both immaculate and eerie. The interior of the yacht was in perfect order. Elegant furnishings, gourmet meals still set out in the dining area, and state-of-the-art navigational equipment all suggested that the crew had left in haste. Personal belongings, including a few scattered travel documents, hinted at a hurried departure, but no one was ever seen again. There were no signs of a struggle, no damage that could point to a sudden catastrophe, and no communication equipment broadcasting a distress signal. The yacht's logbook ended abruptly, its last entry a cryptic note. Time to leave behind what we know. this message only deepened the mystery, suggesting that the disappearance might have been deliberate, or perhaps the result of an unforeseen event. Speculations about the SV Belamica soon proliferated. Some believed she had been involved in covert operations, used by shadowy figures who wished to erase all traces of their journey. Others argued that the yacht was part of an experimental project, equipped with technology so advanced that its crew could vanish into thin air. Still, others whispered of more supernatural possibilities. A vessel caught between worlds, slipping away from reality without warning. The Italian Coast Guard scoured the surrounding waters, yet no trace of the missing crew was ever found. The Belamica was eventually towed to a secure dock, but its origins and the fate of those aboard remain one of the most baffling mysteries of modern maritime lore. A vessel that emerged without a past, leaving behind only elegant silence, continues to haunt the imaginations of those who believe that sometimes even the most sophisticated technology cannot escape the grasp of the unknown. 14. SV Ellen Austin, the Bermuda Enigma. In the summer of 1881, the SV Ellen Austin embarked on what should have been a routine voyage through the notoriously unpredictable waters of the Bermuda Triangle. A modest schooner built for coastal trade, she carried a small crew and a cargo of textiles destined for Caribbean ports. Under the command of Captain Jonathan Wells, a seasoned navigator known for his caution, the journey began with a confident departure from the busy docks of Charleston. Yet, as the Ellen Austin sailed into the heart of the Bermuda Triangle, the weather took an unexpected turn. Heavy, dark clouds rolled in, and a sudden squall whipped up turbulent seas. The crew struggled to secure the sails, and the ship's timbers groaned under the relentless force of nature. Despite their best efforts, communication with shore dwindled, and panic began to seep in. Then, as quickly as it had erupted, the storm subsided. In its wake, an eerie calm settled over the waters. When the skies cleared, the Ellen Austin was found drifting in an unnatural stillness, a ghostly silhouette against the vast, empty ocean. Her masts were intact, and her sails remained half-rigged, yet the deck was devoid of life. The entire crew had vanished without a trace. When rescuers boarded the vessel, they discovered that everything was exactly as if the ship had been in the midst of normal operations. The captain's log lay open on a desk, its final entry a frantic scrawl of numbers and coordinates, abruptly ending in a single cryptic phrase, "Where the light dies." Personal belongings were left behind, meals half prepared on the galley table, and even the ship's chronometer was still ticking, a silent witness to the unfathomable events. Local legends soon swirled around the fate of the Ellen Austin. Some believed that the Bermuda Triangle's infamous energy vortex had swallowed the crew, tearing them from the fabric of reality. Others whispered that the ship had encountered a temporal anomaly, a rift that suspended time long enough for the crew to vanish into another dimension. Even skeptics, armed with modern science, struggled to explain how a seasoned vessel could be abandoned so thoroughly, as if its entire crew had been plucked from existence. To this day, the SV Ellen Austin remains a chilling reminder of the Bermuda Triangle's enigmatic allure, a ghost ship adrift, silently beckoning to those who dare question the limits of the natural world. 15. HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, the Frozen Phantoms. In the mid-19th century, the British Admiralty launched an ambitious expedition to find the fabled Northwest Passage, a route that promised to unlock the secrets of uncharted Arctic waters. Two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were chosen for this daring mission. Under the command of Sir John Franklin, these vessels were outfitted with the best technology and staffed by experienced sailors. Their fate, however, would soon blur the line between myth and reality. In 1845, the expedition set sail with high hopes, navigating treacherous ice fields in a relentless quest for discovery. The crews, hardened by previous Arctic ventures, encountered more than just physical obstacles. The bitter cold and unyielding ice began to work a strange magic, shrouding the ships in an eerie silence that felt almost otherworldly. Then, One day, everything went dark. Communication with the expedition ceased without warning. The ships, along with their nearly 130 souls, vanished into the icy expanse. For years, the disappearance of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror sparked countless theories, ranging from fatal encounters with Arctic predators to catastrophic ice entrapments, even whispered accounts of supernatural forces at work in those remote waters. The Arctic, with its shifting ice and relentless storms, seemed to have swallowed the two vessels whole, leaving only fragments of evidence. Over time, clues emerged. A piece of navigational equipment here, a frozen relic there, each whispering tales of a desperate struggle against nature's fury. Their final resting places remained a mystery, hidden beneath layers of ice and time. Then, in a twist of fate, modern expeditions began to uncover remnants of these long-lost ships. In the 21st century, parts of HMS Erebus were finally located on the seafloor. The findings, while offering a glimpse into the tragic end of the Franklin expedition, only deepened the enigma. How could two state-of-the-art vessels, designed to brave the Arctic, succumb so completely to its unforgiving grip? The haunting legacy of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror endures not just in the annals of maritime history, but in the ghostly aura that surrounds the Arctic. They remain eternal sentinels of a time when the unknown reigned supreme. A stark reminder that even the mightiest ships can vanish without a trace, leaving behind only chilling echoes in the frozen wilderness. 16. SS Marine Sulphur Queen, the Vanished Titan. In the heat of the summer of 1963, the SS Marine Sulphur Queen set sail from Beaumont, Texas, loaded with a volatile cargo of molten sulphur destined for industrial plants along the eastern seaboard. A massive tanker designed to handle hazardous materials, she was a symbol of modern maritime engineering, a behemoth of steel built to brave the roughest of seas. Yet, on that fateful day, she vanished without a trace in the treacherous waters off the coast of Florida. The Marine Sulphur Queen had been known for her impressive size and state-of-the-art equipment, ensuring a smooth voyage. Her crew, a tight-knit team of seasoned mariners, was confident in their vessel's capabilities. However, mere hours after departing, radio contact with the tanker was abruptly lost. No distress call was issued, and no frantic messages were relayed. Only silence filled the airwaves. Search and rescue missions scoured the Gulf of Mexico, yet the tanker, along with her crew, was nowhere to be found. Investigators combed through the wreckage of smaller vessels, but even the most sophisticated sonar scans failed to detect any debris or remnants of the Marine Sulphur Queen. It was as if she had been swallowed whole by the sea, leaving behind only an unexplainable void. Rumours and theories began to circulate. Some speculated that a catastrophic structural failure occurred, a sudden rupture in the tanker's hull due to the corrosive nature of sulphur, causing the vessel to disintegrate before anyone could react. Others whispered of unexplained weather phenomena, rogue waves, or even the possibility of sabotage, given the strategic importance of sulphur in industrial applications during that era. Eyewitness accounts from passing ships described fleeting glimpses of a large shadow moving against the bright horizon, as if the tanker were still afloat, silently drifting into oblivion. Yet no concrete evidence ever emerged to confirm these accounts, and official reports remained inconclusive. The SS Marine Sulphur Queen quickly became one of maritime history's most baffling mysteries. A titan of industry and modern engineering, she had seemingly been erased from existence, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and lingering doubts about the power and unpredictability of the sea. In the years that followed, her disappearance has continued to haunt both seafarers and investigators alike. The vast, indifferent ocean had claimed yet another secret, leaving the mystery of the Marine Sulphur Queen suspended like a spectre over the Gulf. 17. SS Waratah, the Titanic of the South. In 1909, the SS Waratah set sail from Cape Town, South Africa, bound for Australia, a routine voyage for a modern passenger steamer of her time. Dubbed the Titanic of the South for her grandeur and advanced design, the Waratah was celebrated for her luxurious accommodations, state-of-the-art safety features, and a crew renowned for their professionalism. Passengers aboard expected a comfortable journey across treacherous seas, confident in the ship's robust construction and navigational prowess. However, as the Waratah ventured into the tumultuous waters of the Southern Ocean, conditions began to shift ominously. Eyewitness reports noted a sudden eerie calm amidst an otherwise stormy weather pattern. The vessel's instruments registered an unexplained drop in barometric pressure, yet the crew maintained that everything was under control. No distress signals were sent, no warnings were issued. Instead, the ship seemed to slip silently into a void. When the Waratah failed to arrive in Australia, frantic searches were launched. Ships, aircraft, and even local fishermen combed the vast expanse of the ocean, but there was no sign of her. The disappearance was abrupt, a complete vanishing act that defied conventional maritime disasters. Investigators found no wreckage, no floating debris, and no trace of passengers or crew. The ship had seemingly been swallowed by the merciless sea. Speculations ran rampant. Some believed the Waratah had succumbed to a freak rogue wave, a colossal wall of water that could have overwhelmed even the sturdiest vessel. Others speculated about hidden structural flaws or unforeseen design defects that might have triggered a catastrophic failure. A few even whispered of supernatural forces at work in those remote southern waters, where legends and maritime lore often intertwine. Survivors from other ships reported that the ocean that day seemed to have an otherworldly quality, an uncanny stillness that belied the tumult beneath its surface. Yet, despite rigorous investigations and numerous theories, the mystery of the SS Waratah persisted. The ship, along with her 211 souls, had vanished without leaving any conclusive evidence behind. Today, the Waratah stands as one of the most enduring enigmas of the sea. Her fate remains locked away in the depths, a chilling reminder that even the most advanced maritime achievements can sometimes fall prey to the inexplicable forces of nature. 18. Lady Loverbond, the haunting of Goodwin Sands. Legend has it that the Lady Loverbond was once a beautiful ship, carrying love and promise across the English Channel. In 1748, she set sail from England to France with a cargo of fine silks and a heart full of hope. On board, a young couple celebrated their recent marriage, their love shining as brightly as the polished decks. But fate had a far darker course in store. As the Lady Loverbond neared the notorious Goodwin Sands, a treacherous series of shifting sandbanks off the coast of Kent, a sudden and violent storm erupted without warning. The sea roared as if in anger, and lightning split the sky. The inexperienced crew, overwhelmed by the fury of nature, struggled to maintain control. In the chaos, the ship struck the sands, shattering its hull and sending it careening into the deadly embrace of the tides. The disaster was swift and merciless. The Lady Loverbond sank in a matter of minutes, taking with her not only the cargo of silks, but also the dreams and lives of those aboard. The young couple, separated in the chaos, were never reunited. Their tragic fate became etched in the annals of maritime sorrow. But the story of the Lady Loverbond did not end with her sinking. For centuries, sailors have reported a spectral vision. On stormy nights, when the winds howl over Goodwin Sands, a ghostly vessel appears, bathed in an eerie glow. Witnesses claim to see a ship that mirrors the Lady Loverbond in every detail, its sails billowing in the tempest, as if trying desperately to sail away from a doomed past. Some say the ghost ship is a harbinger of ill fortune, a reminder that the sea never forgets. Others believe it is the spirit of the lost lovers, eternally searching for each other across the endless waves. The legend of the Lady Loverbond has seeped into local folklore, with fishermen and coastal dwellers alike treating her appearance as both a marvel and a warning. Today, the Lady Loverbond lives on in whispered tales and fleeting glimpses on stormy nights, a haunting symbol of love, loss, and the relentless power of the sea. 19. MV Lyubov Orlova, the abandoned cruiser of the high seas. In 2013, the MV Lyubov Orlova, a once stately Russian cruise ship, set sail with promise and grandeur. Named after a famous Soviet actress, she was designed to offer luxury and comfort, boasting lavish interiors, elegant dining halls, and state-of-the-art entertainment systems. The ship was a floating palace, intended to charm passengers with a taste of opulence on the open water. Yet, within months of her maiden voyage, something inexplicable occurred. During a routine journey through the icy expanses of the Arctic Circle, the MV Lyubov Orlova broke free from her designated route. Instead of following a planned itinerary, she began drifting aimlessly. The sophisticated navigation systems that once charted her course fell silent. Engines that had roared with power were left idling as the ship continued her solitary voyage, abandoned by her crew. The situation grew even more bizarre when reports began to surface. The vessel, once teeming with life, had become eerily deserted. Crew members were never found or heard from again. In a twist that baffled maritime investigators, the ship wasn't left to sink into obscurity. Instead, she was discovered drifting, intact and pristine on the frigid waters. But the real shock came when onboard surveillance captured an unusual sight. Swarms of rats scuttling across the empty decks, as if drawn to the silent drama unfolding. Questions abounded. Was this a case of a well-planned mutiny that led to a mass disappearance? Could it have been a deliberate act to steal the vessel, leaving the crew to vanish without a trace? Or was it something far more inexplicable, a malfunction so surreal that it rendered the entire crew incapable of responding, leaving behind a ghostly silhouette of a ship? Investigators combed through the ship's logs, yet the final entries were cryptic, hinting at confusion and disarray. No distress signals were sent, no emergency protocols were activated. It was as if the crew had simply evaporated into thin air. The MV Lyubov Orlova now floats as a modern-day enigma, a luxurious ghost ship drifting in the Arctic, its corridors echoing with the silent mystery of those who once walked them. She serves as a stark reminder that even in an age of advanced technology, the sea can still hold secrets that defy explanation. 20. Rosalie, the vanished merchant. In 1840, the merchant brigantine Rosalie set sail from a bustling port in Marseille, laden with fine goods and the hopes of prosperous trade. Under the steady hand of Captain Antoine Marceau, she navigated the Mediterranean's familiar yet unpredictable waters. Her hull was strong, her rigging pristine, and her crew, a disciplined team of seasoned sailors, braced themselves for another routine voyage. Yet, as Rosalie neared the Strait of Gibraltar, a subtle unease began to creep into the hearts of those on board. The skies grew overcast, though no storm was forecast, and the usually sparkling sea took on an eerie, glassy calm. It was as if nature itself had pressed pause. Then, without warning, communication ceased. A distress signal was never sent, and not a single cry for help echoed across the waves. Days later, a passing vessel spotted the Rosalie adrift. The ship, though intact and seemingly seaworthy, was entirely devoid of life. When investigators boarded her, they found everything meticulously in place: the captain's log, personal effects, cargo crates of wine and olive oil, and even meals laid out in the galley, half consumed as if the crew had stepped away for a moment and never returned. The atmosphere on board was surreal, imbued with a quiet finality that defied explanation. Local lore soon spread of Rosalie's ghostly appearance. Some speculated that an unexpected and inexplicable wave had swept the crew overboard, leaving behind a vessel that continued its journey without them. Others whispered of a mysterious fog, a transient veil that, for a fleeting moment, separated reality from another realm, whisking the crew away into oblivion. A few even believed that the ship had encountered a curse or supernatural force, a malevolent presence that silently claimed the lives of all aboard. Despite exhaustive searches in the surrounding waters, no trace of the crew was ever found. The ship was towed to a nearby port, where authorities marvelled at its pristine condition and the eerie normalcy of its interior. A ship caught in a moment of time that was meant to be fleeting, now forever frozen in mystery, the Rosalie became a symbol of maritime enigma, a ghost ship that sailed not through tempest, but through a realm of unanswered questions. Her legacy lives on in whispered tales of the sea, a haunting reminder that even in calm waters, the ocean can hide secrets that defy explanation. 21. Freya, the Phantom of Danish Waters. In 1845, the Freya set sail from a bustling Danish port, her elegant wooden hull gleaming in the early morning light. A merchant vessel built for both trade and grace, she carried a cargo of freshly caught herring, barrels of salted fish, and goods destined for the thriving markets of northern Europe. Her captain, a seasoned sailor known for his unfaltering precision, guided her confidently through the familiar, icy waters of the Baltic Sea. Yet, as the Freya ventured beyond the sight of the harbour, an unsettling calm settled over the deck. The weather was clear, but the usual lively chatter of the crew had dwindled to an eerie silence. In the hours that followed, a thick, unnatural fog began to roll in, one that seemed to muffle even the sound of the waves lapping against her sides. It was as if the sea itself was conspiring to hide something. By twilight, the Freya was nowhere to be seen on the horizon. When a passing vessel finally caught sight of her, the ship appeared to be adrift, a ghostly silhouette against a murky sky. The lookout's report was chilling. The ship's decks were unnervingly organised. Tables in the galley were set for a meal that would never be eaten, and the captain's log was open to the last entry, written in a hurried scrawl that ended abruptly. When rescue teams boarded the Freya, they found the ship utterly abandoned. Personal belongings were undisturbed, navigational instruments perfectly in place, and every detail spoke of normalcy, except for the total absence of the crew. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence of panic. It was as if the crew had simply vanished into the fog. Local legends soon wove their way through the coastal towns of Denmark. Some whispered that the Freya had been caught in a mysterious phenomenon, a moment when time and space blurred, causing the entire crew to vanish without a trace. Others believed she had sailed into a parallel realm, forever doomed to drift as an echo of a once vibrant ship. Despite exhaustive searches, no trace of the missing crew was ever found. The Freya was towed to port and examined by experts, yet her mystery persisted. She became known as the Phantom of Danish Waters, a vessel that sailed away from reality and left behind only unanswered questions and a lingering chill in the hearts of those who remembered her tale. 22. Octavius, the Frozen Passage. In the winter of 1775, amid the relentless cold of the Arctic, a vessel emerged from the swirling mists of the Northwest Passage. Known as the Octavius, this ship, if it indeed existed, has since become a symbol of maritime mystery and frozen tragedy. According to fragmented accounts passed down through generations, the Octavius was a sturdy brig, built for exploration and commerce, that set sail with a crew of brave souls eager to discover new routes to distant lands. As the ship navigated the labyrinth of ice floes and treacherous currents, the Arctic proved to be an unforgiving host. Witnesses from later expeditions claimed to have seen the Octavius adrift among giant icebergs, her sails tattered and her decks obscured by a thick veil of frost. The most chilling detail, however, was the state of her crew. Reports described the mariners as if suspended in time, frozen in place, their expressions etched with the final terror of a sudden, inescapable doom. When the vessel was eventually discovered by an exploration party, the scene was surreal. The Octavius floated in an area where the ice had begun to break apart with the early hints of spring. Yet, on board, the silence was absolute. Meals lay half-prepared on tables. Personal belongings were scattered as if hastily abandoned. And, most disturbingly, the crew was nowhere to be found. Some accounts even claimed that traces of frost-covered footprints led from the captain's quarters to the open deck, only to vanish into the icy abyss. Theories about the fate of the Octavius abound. Some suggest that the extreme cold induced a mass hypothermic stupor, leaving the crew unable to react as the ship was slowly encased in ice. Others posit that a sudden calving of a glacier might have struck the vessel, killing everyone instantly and leaving the ship to drift with its secrets locked inside. A more mystical interpretation argues that the Octavius crossed a threshold between worlds, a fleeting moment when time itself halted, trapping the souls of her crew in eternal silence. Despite modern efforts to locate any remnants of this spectral voyage, the Octavius remains an enigma. Her story endures as a chilling reminder that even the most intrepid explorers can fall victim to nature's indomitable power. The legend of the Octavius continues to haunt the frozen corridors of the Arctic, a ghostly passage forever lost in time. 23. SS Kamloops, the frozen spectre of Lake Superior. In the biting winter of 1927, the SS Kamloops embarked on what should have been a routine voyage across the vast expanse of Lake Superior. A sturdy steamship built for rugged northern waters, she was loaded with iron ore and provisions, and her seasoned crew was well acquainted with the lake's unpredictable moods. Yet, as the bitter cold set in and ice began to form along the shoreline, an inexplicable silence descended over the vessel. Reports from that fateful winter spoke of an unusual calm that blanketed the lake. The SS Kamloops sailed into a dense fog that seemed to mute even the howl of the winter wind. Navigational instruments struggled to cut through the swirling white mists, and soon contact with the steamship was lost. By all accounts, the ship simply vanished into the frozen void. Weeks later, local fishermen navigating the icy waters near the northern shore reported a chilling sight. A hulking, ghostly outline emerged from beneath thick sheets of ice, a ship that bore every mark of the SS Kamloops. As rescue teams braved the frigid temperatures to investigate, they found the vessel eerily preserved in a frozen tableau. The ship's decks, once bustling with life, lay in silent stillness, and a pervasive frost clung to every surface. But it wasn't just the ship that sent shivers down the spines of those who found her. The most disturbing evidence was the condition of her crew. In the dim light of a winter afternoon, partially frozen bodies were discovered inside the cabins, their features remarkably preserved by the sub-zero temperatures. The expressions on their faces were locked in a final, unspoken terror, a silent testament to the abrupt and mysterious calamity that had befallen them. Investigators combed through every inch of the SS Kamloops, searching for clues that might explain the inexplicable tragedy. The ship's log was incomplete, its last entries abruptly ending as if the crew had been forced to abandon ship in an instant. No signs of struggle, no indication of sabotage, only the overwhelming evidence of nature's ruthless power. Today, the SS Kamloops is remembered as one of Lake Superior's most haunting legends, a ghost ship forever suspended in time, preserved by the relentless cold. Her story continues to echo among local communities, a spectral reminder that even the most formidable vessels can fall victim to the icy grip of the unknown. 24. Patanella, the luxury yacht of vanishing. In 1988, the Patanella set sail from the sparkling marinas of Australia, a luxury yacht renowned for its exquisite design and state-of-the-art amenities. Owned by a wealthy entrepreneur, she was the epitome of modern maritime opulence, sleek lines, polished teak decks, and an interior that rivaled the finest five-star resorts. The crew, hand-picked for their expertise and professionalism, ensured that every voyage promised comfort and elegance. On what was meant to be a routine journey along the sun-drenched coastlines, something inexplicable happened. As the Patanella navigated the turquoise waters, a sudden and unforeseen shift in conditions unsettled the tranquility. Eyewitnesses later recalled that the weather seemed to change in an instant, a deceptive calm giving way to an eerie stillness. The yacht's advanced navigation systems reported no anomalies, and there were no signs of distress from either mechanical failure or external threat. Yet, hours later, the Patanella was found adrift in open water, her engines still humming softly, and her lights flickering as if in a final, quiet farewell. When maritime authorities boarded the vessel, they discovered an almost surreal scene. Personal belongings and crew items were left in place, and the galley still bore remnants of a meal half prepared, suggesting that the departure had been as sudden as it was inexplicable. the only clue to the mystery was a cryptic note found in the captain's quarters, a hastily scrawled message that read, "Time to leave behind what we know." No further explanation accompanied the note, and it raised more questions than answers. Was this a premeditated act of disappearance? Or did an unknown force compel the crew to abandon ship without warning? Investigators were baffled. No evidence of a struggle or external attack was found, and forensic analysis of the yacht failed to reveal any toxic substances or system malfunctions. Theories ranged from a meticulously planned mutiny to a bizarre collective psychogenic event triggered by an unexplained environmental phenomenon. The Patanella became a modern maritime enigma, a luxury yacht that vanished from sight, leaving behind a vessel intact and a message that hinted at a desire to escape the ordinary. Today, her ghostly silhouette continues to inspire whispered debates among maritime experts and conspiracy theorists alike, serving as a reminder that even in an age of technological marvels, the sea can still harbour mysteries beyond our understanding. 25. Thomas Hume, the lost schooner of unanswered farewells. In 1824, the Thomas Hume set sail from a bustling port on the eastern seaboard with high hopes and a modest cargo of timber and trade goods. A three-masted schooner known for her reliability and sturdy build, she was helmed by a determined captain and manned by a tight-knit crew of 6. Their mission was simple: navigate the familiar coastal routes, make a profit, and return home safely. But as fate would have it, the Thomas Hume was destined to become one of maritime history's most perplexing mysteries. On a crisp autumn morning, with the sea calm and skies clear, the schooner departed without incident. The crew went about their daily routines, tending to the sails and maintaining the vessel as they had done countless times before. Yet, as the ship sailed further along a less travelled route, a palpable sense of foreboding seemed to hang in the air. Passers-by later recalled that the usually vibrant vessel appeared oddly subdued, its decks unusually quiet. Then, without warning, communication with the Thomas Hume ceased. Ships that normally exchanged friendly greetings with the schooner soon began reporting that she was nowhere to be seen. Days turned into weeks, and a deep concern gripped the maritime community. Rescue parties were dispatched, scanning the horizon and combing through coastal waters, but they found no trace of the ship or her crew. When the Thomas Hume was finally declared lost, the official reports mentioned only a series of unexplained weather patterns and navigational anomalies that might have led to her demise. Yet, no wreckage was ever recovered, and no bodies were found. It was as if the schooner had simply evaporated from the face of the sea. Local legends quickly took hold. Some whispered that the Thomas Hume had encountered a sudden, violent maelstrom that swallowed her whole. Others believed that a mysterious fog, thick and impenetrable, had descended upon her, erasing the vessel and its crew from existence. In taverns and seaside villages, the tale of the Thomas Hume became a cautionary fable, a reminder that even the most unassuming ships can vanish without leaving a trace. Today, the Thomas Hume lives on only in whispered legends, and in the hearts of those who still wonder how a reliable schooner, with a dedicated crew, could be lost to the vast, enigmatic ocean. 26. MV Derbyshire, the giant lost to the depths. In 1980, the MV Derbyshire set sail as a testament to modern engineering. A colossal bulk carrier built to transport iron ore across vast oceans. With a towering steel frame and cutting-edge technology, she was the pride of the British merchant fleet. Her crew of 44 men were among the most experienced seafarers, confident in their vessel's ability to weather even the fiercest storms. Yet, on a routine voyage through the treacherous waters of the North Pacific, the Derbyshire met an unimaginable fate. On a seemingly ordinary day, radio contact with the MV Derbyshire abruptly ceased. No distress call was sent, no frantic messages were relayed, only an eerie silence. When the ship failed to reach her scheduled port of call, search and rescue operations were launched with urgency. Despite extensive efforts using the latest technology, the massive vessel was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had been swallowed whole by the relentless ocean, Weeks turned into months, and the mystery deepened. Investigators combed through the wreckage of other lost vessels, reviewed weather data, and analysed every scrap of evidence. The Derbyshire's design was scrutinised, with experts seeking to understand how a ship of such robust construction could simply vanish without a trace. Some pointed to structural weaknesses exacerbated by the corrosive saltwater, while others suspected that rogue waves or unforeseen weather phenomena had played a pivotal role. Eyewitnesses from nearby shipping lanes reported seeing a massive silhouette moving against a tumultuous sea, a fleeting glimpse of a giant vessel fighting against nature's fury, only to disappear beneath the waves. The enormity of the Derbyshire made her loss all the more baffling and tragic. She was not just a ship. She was a floating fortress of industry, carrying the dreams and livelihoods of dozens of men. Today, the MV Derbyshire remains one of maritime history's most perplexing enigmas, a stark reminder that even the most modern and mighty vessels are at the mercy of the unpredictable ocean. Her disappearance continues to haunt investigators and seafarers alike, symbolising the enduring mystery of the deep, where secrets lie buried beneath layers of time and turbulent water. 27. SV Resolven, the vessel that drifted into oblivion. In 1884, the SV Resolven set sail on what was meant to be a routine voyage along the rugged coastlines of the British Isles. A modest sailing vessel built for coastal trade, she was known for her steady performance and reliability. Captain Edward Clark, a veteran with decades of experience, trusted his ship implicitly, and the small but dedicated crew shared his confidence in the vessel. The Resolven departed on a crisp autumn morning, her sails billowing under a clear sky. Everything appeared normal until a sudden, unexplained fog descended upon the coastline. The weather reports had predicted only a light mist, but within minutes, an impenetrable shroud enveloped the ship. Visibility dropped to nearly zero, and the usual landmarks along the coast were swallowed by the dense haze. As the fog thickened, the crew struggled to maintain their course. The ship's instruments began to falter, and Captain Clark ordered a cautious reduction in speed. Communication among the crew grew tense, with whispered fears of an impending disaster. Then, as abruptly as it had appeared, the fog lifted. But the calm that followed was far more unsettling. Floating in the now serene waters was the SV Resolven, adrift and utterly silent. No crew was to be found on deck or below. Personal effects, neatly arranged and seemingly left in haste, were scattered throughout the vessel. The captain's log, still open on his desk, ended abruptly with a single cryptic entry: vanished into the mist. Local fishermen who encountered the vessel later reported that everything on board appeared untouched. Meals were half served, personal belongings remained in place, and navigational tools were still set as if the ship had been in active service moments before. Yet, not a single soul could account for the sudden disappearance. No lifeboats were missing, no signs of struggle or distress were found, and no rescue signals had been sent. Theories about the fate of the SV Resolven ran rampant. Some speculated that the mysterious fog was no ordinary weather phenomenon, but a portal, a momentary breach between worlds that had swept the crew away. Others suggested that a rare and unexplainable meteorological event had rendered the crew disoriented, leading them to abandon ship in a collective act of panic. Yet none of these theories provided definitive answers. Today, the SV Resolven remains a ghostly enigma, a vessel frozen in time, drifting as a silent monument to the ocean's unfathomable mysteries. Her fate continues to haunt maritime lore, a reminder that even the most dependable ships can vanish into oblivion, leaving behind nothing but whispered legends and unanswered questions.